Oxycontin maker Purdue Pharma offering to settle more than 2,000 opioid lawsuits against the company. We have Meg Tirrell, who's been following all the developments in the opioid crisis. Robert Frank is going to tell us more about the family behind Purdue Pharma. But Meg will start us off and give us the latest this morning.
Well, good morning, guys. The potential $10 to $12 billion settlement from Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family could be the first step toward a massive global settlement in the thousands of cases brought by states, cities, and counties accusing the pharmaceutical industry of causing the opioid epidemic. Now, most recently, it had seemed as if states plan to pursue their own separate tracks of litigation here, like we just saw play out in Oklahoma, rather than join with the more than 2,000 cases from cities, counties, and others that have been consolidated in federal court in Cleveland. The news of Purdue's potential settlement, reported late yesterday by NBC News, marks a potential turn here. Now, it would involve Purdue declaring bankruptcy and then restructuring to form a for-profit public benefit trust from which any profits from Oxycontin or an opioid overdose drug would go to municipalities who agree to the settlement. According to NBC, the company would also donate $4 billion worth of drugs as part of the $7 to $8 billion total discussed in the settlement.
Wait, like here's some more opioids?
Well, or here's some drugs to help treat opioid addiction, not Oxycontin. And the Sackler family, as part of the settlement, would pay at least $3 billion. Now, news of the potential settlement sent stocks of other companies involved in opioid litigation lower yesterday, both manufacturers and distributors moving on the news as they're both involved in litigation, as the number was bigger than many on Wall Street had been allocating for a single drug company. But some, like Wells Fargo's David Maris, say they thought Purdue's settlement would be even larger given its history in the opioid epidemic. It does appear that momentum, guys, toward a large global settlement is accelerating. Johnson & Johnson, of course, after its loss in Oklahoma Monday night, said that all options are on the table for the massive set of cases in Cleveland, including a potential settlement. And, guys, some companies like McKesson are saying that they're only going to do a settlement if it's with all of the parties, the states, cities, counties. That's what Purdue is talking about here,
That makes
too.
sense. If you
and
could
the judge seems to be
actually,
pushing
if you could actually wrap it all up and say, okay, instead of thinking you're going to litigate every one or litigate a bunch of them afterwards.
And that's where we'd be similar to tobacco if they can actually reach that kind of thing.
I mean, the plaintiff lawyers smell blood. Where else could they go? Could they go to middlemen? Could they go to doctors?
Yes.
Could they go, I mean...
So doctors have already been kind of prosecuted individually.
How about the FDA?
Well, some people are saying they should look at the FDA and the DEA, but they're not going to get a lot of money. I mean, so that's a different side of this. But they're looking at drug companies, drug distributors, and pharmacies.
And pharmacies.
Yeah, and in that order of kind of...
In that order, because that's where the money is in that order, too.
Well, yeah. So some of the drug companies don't have so much money anymore. If you look at Teva, Mallinckrodt, and Endo, those companies have already lost quite a bit.
What is shocking, again, we were talking about this a little earlier, is in hindsight, it would have been so easy to go back and find some of the worst players, to pick up, the 10 biggest prescribers where they were obviously prescribing far more than you could ever reasonably be doing in a county. I mean...
Right. As part of this massive case in Cleveland, we've gotten to see some of this data that's come out from the DEA. The Washington Post and a West Virginia paper fought to get this unsealed, and we got to see that information. But it's from 2006 to 2012. And talking to these companies, they say, yeah, that's looking back at it. And when you look back at it, you get a different view and you get this comprehensive picture. Well, we as drug distributors, for example, we were only looking at parts of the data. The DEA had all of it. And so that's where you get the kind of pointing fingers. Who should have known? Who should have done something?
How are we in getting the drug that's not addictive, a new way to treat pain?
That's really important. Companies are working on it, and there are some really interesting targets.
We did one that's there yet, huh?
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but there are some new things on the horizon, and probably more investment needs to go into that.
How do you ever find something that makes you feel great and is not addicting? This makes you feel awesome.
Just to get, you don't want to make you feel good. You just want the pain to end.
That's that makes you feel awesome. If you're living in pain and it makes the pain go away.
The problem is that opioids also add something else. But if you don't have pain,
you don't. People who don't have pain end up.
If you're living in chronic pain, that's the...
Right. All right. Let's bring in Robert Frank. That's more on the family behind Purdue Pharma, the Sacklers. How many? I mean, you need a family tree. They're all over the place.
Well, there are two basic branches.
factions.
There's Raymond and Mortimer. These are the brothers that started this company in Brooklyn in the 1950s. They started with earwax and laxatives. That was the basis of the company.
The earwax is a laxative, or
no?
Oh, okay,
no.
Go ahead.
And so part of the issue with this whole fight is that you have two branches of the family that have been fighting together. But Joe, you mentioned sort of the plaintiffs going to where the money is. This is a family that's got a net worth estimated by Forbes and Bloomberg of around $13 billion.
Wow.
So as part of this settlement, they're going to pay $3 billion. And a lot of their fortune, they took out about $4 billion from Purdue after 2007. So they got that $4 billion. The rest of the 13 is from their holdings in a company called Mundi Pharma, which is actually a network of drug companies that has been selling opioids overseas. As part of this settlement, they will get that $3 billion from selling Mundi Pharma. If the sale price of Mundi Pharma is above a certain number, they'll pay an additional $1.5 billion. So that's $4.5 plus the $75 million that they contributed in the Oklahoma case. So that's possibly over $4.5 billion more than they allegedly took out of Purdue Pharma from that 10-year period. But again, they're still going to be left with something like $10 billion after this settlement. And the question is, you know, universities, museums like the Metropolitan, the Tate, the Guggenheim have all said we are not going to take donations anymore. And, you know, for this family, they have wealth. What they want to restore is their reputation. And they're feeling that they've been targeted and demonized unfairly for what they say is just
that money safe, Robert? Really?
Is what money safe?
That $13.5 billion. Is that really?
Well, they're hoping this will kind of ring fence them from some of those claims, but they're going to have a lot of claims.
By sacrificing the company, they've left the company anyway. All right, that's a lot. Would you refer to it as ill-gotten or not?
Well, that's what Massachusetts is leading the fights against directly the Sacklers. That's what they claim. They say these are opioid profiteers. The family says we were passive investors. We were on the board. 8 of them at one time were on the board. They're not on the board anymore.
They always have someone to point fingers at. Yeah. Right?